welcome to my cabin. Today I'm setting up inside because it's kind of a gloomy day. It's raining in January. And that is in fact something I'm witnessing here in the last at least 10-15 years now. Winters have gotten much warmer and shorter. And we seem to have these warm spells in January, where you think that would be the coldest month. But right now it's right around freezing, and it's rain and snow outside. Not the best conditions. So anyway, I thought I'd set up inside. You get to know my surroundings a little bit too. And I keep telling you about coming to Alaska and how that all happened. There's already a part 1 video that you can watch, and this is part 2. It took me about 6 weeks to find a job, and that was scary because I did not bring a lot of funds. I had a very small budget to buy a car. 4x4 was a must for me, and I found one. It was a really old 1986 Nissan with a 4x4, and it was a manual transmission, which of course for a German isn't a big deal at all, but for Americans, so this person apparently had trouble selling it, but that didn't matter to me whatsoever. So I got a car for, I think it was paid $2,200, and of course it needed repairs pretty much right afterwards. The heater wouldn't work inside, and I had to take my Costco card and scrape the iced over windshield from the inside to be able to have a little hole and make it to work and back until my next paycheck would allow me to have that fixed. Anyway, so those are little adventures that are, yeah, they were all a bit new to me because in Germany I was already pretty established and had a household and, a life. And then coming to Alaska, that took a bit of finances, of course. Moving does. You want to bring some money, and it didn't bring a lot. But this little truck brought me back and forth to work and in the advertising agency. And they had some pretty big accounts, so that was exciting too. I had suddenly I would work on Providence Hospital and Permanent Fund Dividend, AT&T, Alaskan, really some big clients, and that was fun. But that office was a bit strange, I have to say. And as I later found out, that a lot of the art directors had come and go. And obviously I would be added to the list because at some point I also quit that job and moved up north. One of the things that was kind of tough in the beginning was speaking English. Speaking English all day long exhausts your brain. Now it doesn't do that anymore to me. But in the beginning, working in an advertising agency, having colleagues, having meetings, meeting clients, and having your brain switched on the whole time was challenging. I mean, I came home at night and was so tired. Now that's not a big deal anymore. Again, almost 25 years now here in Alaska, speaking English, listening to the radio, watching TV shows. Naturally, now my thinking is in English. My dreams are in English. I write all my notes in English. Not a lot of German in my head anymore. And sometimes I do struggle, actually, if I do speak to my family. It always takes me a minute or two to get back into German, just because I'm just not used to it anymore. I don't have a lot of opportunity to speak German. So that's one of those funny things about moving abroad and then getting used to that language so much that it's now part of me. But obviously coming to meetings from this place always took about 2.5 hours to drive into the city of Anchorage. Eventually I made clear to them we can discuss quite a bit about these projects by phone or email. That happened eventually. I think they were all still pretty new to the idea that someone wouldn't work in their office, or wouldn't be right around the corner. But we got used to it, and then I continued working as a freelancer for this ad agency. So I made just enough money to pay rent and food and more car repair bills. And I lived in a tiny little cabin, just a 16 by 16 or maybe smaller. And it was a dry cabin, which means no running water. It did have electricity, so I could power the Toyo stove. That's a type of heating that a lot of people have here. Toyo stoves are they're powered by electricity, yes, but diesel is the heat source. And so that cabin had one of those Toyo stoves. And then it had a kitchen, but again, no running water. So I got jugs of water and placed my jug on the kitchen countertop. That jug had a little faucet, you know how you can, plastic faucets, those things that always break. And anyway, that was my kitchen faucet. And then the water would run through the sink into a bucket. And one obviously always had to watch out that the bucket wouldn't overfill, or you'd have a really big mess on the floor. For a toilet, there's an outhouse. Outhouse here doesn't mean shed. Outhouse literally means, you know, a privy. You go outside for the toilet. My landlady was awesome. She asked me if I could take care of her 6 retired sled dogs, 2 ducks and a few chickens, I think, as I remember it correctly. And she would be traveling a lot because she was a teacher, but working in remote areas of Alaska. So she would fly out by bush plane and would be gone for a week, 2, sometimes a month. And I was then there to take care of her animals. And I loved it. And which, of course, was a great deal for me because sometimes I would live rent-free in exchange for this work for her. So anyway, again, I was so lucky to have found that place. And I'm so lucky that this was such a fantastic landlady. And I'm really grateful. It just gave me a good start. But yeah, again, new place, you have to get to know the community, building a client base for me, and it means making contacts. And so some of my clients felt like friends to me because that was the best friend I could have at that moment. But I also got to know my husband, and in typical fashion, as it often is in these small communities, I met him at the pub. And the conversation was kind of like, oh, you have a dog? I have a dog. Should we go out and hike with the dogs? And so anyway, we hiked a bit and got to know each other better over a couple times of getting together and having some mini adventures. At that moment, I was, of course, actively looking for a piece of property to buy where my parents could live. Because, again, that was the idea that once they are retired, and that was 3 more years to go, they would follow me to Alaska. And which is kind of cool if you think that they're Germans. They lived in Alaska in the late 60s. And early 70s, and then I was born here, and then they moved back to Germany just for their daughter to explain to them at age 30, you know, I think I'm gonna live in Alaska. And as an only child, for them, it was a really easy decision to say, well, we're going to follow you. And to me, I actually loved it, because that would mean that I could share my adult life with them. And also, I mean, not just sharing me getting married and having kids and, you know, having them as part of my family here, but also at some point to be able to take care of them when they are older. And that's definitely something that happened. I do love how Americans, generally speaking, are really smiley and friendly, and that is a tone of voice that I had to adapt to and learn, especially in the office in the beginning. The way people talk to the bosses, the way we talk to our supervisors, it's not as straightforward. Like, to me, as a German, I'm much more, I mean, used to be at least, direct. I say directly what I think, what I feel, what problem could be solved. And that is sometimes shocking to people. And now, of course, I learned that type of sing-song American voice that one is supposed to use in an office location, or me with clients or customers. But generally speaking, I like it that people, especially in the service industry, are super friendly. And I think it's just part of being an American. It's not fake. I mean, sometimes it can be. I now know and recognize those nuances. That was tough in the beginning. Sarcasm, for instance, really tough for me to detect. Now it's not a problem. But in the beginning, sarcasm was a really tricky thing for me. Another thing you need to get used to here in Alaska specifically is those really, really short days in the wintertime. I mean, that first winter, I remember clearly, it didn't bother me one bit because it's all new, right? You see the northern lights and the sky at night filled with stars. I mean, there's no light pollution. It's just so beautiful. Where do you have that? So all of it was fascinating. But now that I live here for a long time, sometimes I crave a bit more sunshine in the wintertime. So that effort to go outside in the daylight hours, those few daylight hours, that's really important for your well-being, and it messes with people too. It really messes with people's rhythms. Some people are more prone to depression in the wintertime, but you know, I always feel you need to kind of slow down in the winter anyway. It's just like a hibernation state in a way. You know, you light more candles, and then there's Christmas coming around, and or other holidays, depending on what you celebrate. And it just means more lights, more candles, and I make an effort that my house is illuminated and beautiful. And then, well, those 3 or 4 really short months of darkness, it's not completely dark. Like I said, there are daylight hours. You just have to make use of them. One of the other things I noticed is these holes in the cultural experience that I had. Obviously, I grew up in Germany, so advertisements, slogans, or commercials like "Where's the beef?" or "I've fallen and I can't get up," that meant nothing to me. So obviously I had to look these things up. The internet was, of course, already a thing, and I had to then learn, all right, yeah, I get it. But some of the jokes I just couldn't laugh about because there was no context for me. After I had moved further north, I met my future husband, And he was pretty much my only friend here for a long time. There was another German here too, who she became my friend as well. But that was pretty much it. There were connections with my clients, and that was good, but no deep friendships. And that is definitely something I struggled with here. I'm not sure if people thought that, or because of my German accent, I might be a tourist. How long will she stay? Because one of those first questions that people ask you here is, do you live here year round? Or they'll ask, are you staying for the winter? And even after all these years, obviously I haven't shed my German accent. How could I? That question still comes up today. Where are you staying? In a way of asking, what lodging are you staying in for your vacation? And then of course I have to explain, well, I actually live here. But that's just the nature of it, and I'm happy to tell my story to anyone who wants to hear it. I have an Airbnb too here on my property, and so I meet people from all over the world, and that's great fun. And yes, I've told my story a million times, I think. Which is fun. I love it when people are interested in and want to learn about how I live here, and it's this off-grid location. What does that even mean? So yeah, I always love the curious guests. When I finally found my property, which was a total stroke of luck, I had actually walked my dog here on this road here many times, and always looked into this driveway and said, wow, that house looks abandoned. Who lives there? Nobody. I wonder if that's ever going to come up for sale. And it took a year, and it came up on the local realtor's website. And so right away I contacted the realtor and asked if I can see the house from the inside. And she actually said, well, I can't show you until we have a sunny day where the view is out. And I said, don't worry, I know exactly how the view looks like. It has this great panoramic view of the Alaska range. I need to see this. And so we came here on a very, very rainy day. And, the inside looked pretty bad. This cabin needed a lot of work. It was never really finished. I had to hire plumbers and electricians and experts who knew about solar panels, inverter system, diesel generator. All of that had to be set up, and that was a huge learning curve, especially that in some cases I didn't even know what to ask for. And then still, of course, with my heavy German accent, you use hands and feet to describe exactly what you're looking for. But it all worked out. We built 2 extra little log cabins on the property, and that was supposed to be extra income for my parents, because as they were early retirees, and them putting, a big chunk of their savings into this home, and the property purchase, they needed to have an extra income for a few more years. That worked out well, and I'm thankful that they went that route, because living in Alaska is quite expensive. You often have many jobs to make it work. At least that's how it seems to be here. During that time, my friend, who then became my husband, he helped me during that winter and the following summer a bit too. I actually paid him, so that worked out well. He had some knowledge about, drywall and tools, power tools, and all these things. So we basically were, in the beginning, when we were just starting to renovate this log home, we did 8 hours of orbital sanders on the log walls, trying to get them back to life. But we got it all done in time for my parents to arrive here in the fall of 2004. And it was a fabulous day. The mountains were out. I had just so hoped for this to be a perfect day. And it was. I picked them up from the airport. Some of their old friends were there to greet them. And I mean, it could not have been more perfect. And I drove them out here, and so it's off of a gravel road, and it takes about, over 10 minutes on this gravel road. And for them, it was getting more and more exciting. Oh boy, she's bringing us all the way out here. I mean, they had some idea of how this might look like, because I had sent them photos, of course, and little video clips even, because that was the start of digital video. I had a tiny little camera to do that with. And they still in the back of their head sometimes thought, maybe she's not quite honest about this fantastic view, but well, it is a one-of-a-kind national park view that we have here on this property. Yes, it's an old log cabin, and yes, it's off-grid, and that comes with a whole bunch of challenges, but the location was the seller for me and for my parents. So anyway, they arrived, and their container with their furniture also had arrived just a couple days before. They had actually made the decision and a calculation, should we buy in Alaska, or should we bring all our furniture from Germany? And it was kind of a plus minus zero calculation, and they ultimately decided we're just going to bring what we have. Pretty much everything was still in boxes by the time they entered this home. And they saw this spectacular view. So they, just like me, fell in love with this place immediately. So yeah, we all started to grow our roots here and made this our home. Fast forward to 2006, I got married. We had a baby, lots of adventures in between. My husband started a fly fishing guide service, and I helped in the office. I took the bookings, and he did the guiding. I also had started a full-time position working from home, which was, a little bit more unusual at that time, unlike today where remote work is just the regular thing. I started a full-time position as an in-house graphic designer at Alaska Geographic. It's a nonprofit. And that was a fabulous change here, because suddenly there was less worry about income. And my parents were fabulous Oma and Opa grandparents to our daughter. And then later to our son, who came 3 years after that. We always tried to slip in some time to go camping with the kids and take them outdoors. We hiked and backpacked. We did a backpacking trip with them. And you just try to keep them outdoorsy, because that's what Alaska has to offer, especially in this area. If you're outside of the city, there really isn't anything to do for kids here other than the outdoors. There's no entertainment. Now, of course, that we all have cell phones, smartphones, I should say, everybody's looking into their smartphones. And that does happen with my kids too. And I always have to remind them that, are you using it as a tool or are you using it for entertainment, or are you just bored? So you see, we have these discussions here too. But growing up was pretty adventurous for my kids. They did pretty much everything outdoors. And the connections that I still try to find in this area here, my new community, that was a bit of a tougher story for me. It took until until my daughter went to preschool at the elementary school. Then I started making some connections, and I really have to thank one of the moms there who invited me and other moms over and over again. And that's how I met one of my best friends here now. I'm thankful I have her. But in the beginning, when I was just a mom, it was a tough time. I felt quite lonely because, I had this beautiful daughter. Obviously, you want to show her off, right? And there was nobody to show her off to. So I was very glad that my parents were here. Having them around to help while I was working full time was really a blessing.
Mal einen dicken, fetten. Ah, der ist schön groß, ne?
Oh. Oh, danke schön, Klassen.
Noch einen großen? Nicht ins Gesicht tun.
Danke.
Pass hier an. So. Düt, Mama, düt. Düt, düt, düt.
Mama,
Hier.
laut. Laut.
Laut, ja. Wo rein?
So my kids actually grew up with German and English, and they're bilingual. I don't speak enough German with them. It's just one of those side notes. That's the funny part when you live here for such a long time and you're influenced by the TV or YouTube or radio. Everything is obviously English, and your kids go to school and they speak English, and then naturally I will respond in English. Yeah, and then as my daughter entered first grade, we decided to homeschool her. That's another big difference here. In Alaska, there's a huge homeschool community. Homeschooling in Germany is illegal, but here it's a totally normal way of life, and also obviously born out of the fact that some people live far away from schools. It's not the case for us. I could have sent the kid to the elementary school and then later to high school, and she did actually try that too, just to experience it. But homeschool was always our choice, and now that she's a teen and graduating actually, she chose homeschool. And that was a fun time. I had to work full-time and homeschool her, so it was a big job, obviously. And she did so well. She stayed curious. We had topics to talk about that were way beyond what the public school system here teaches. A lot more about geography, a lot more about history, not just American history. And then as she aged, became a teen, we talked about more difficult topics, politics too, and different societies, and how historical events have shaped countries and governments. And so yeah, I think we pretty much talk about any topic, my kids and I. My son went to elementary school for 3 years before he started homeschooling. And we are in a homeschool program. So it is an official school that is part of the district, the school district. So you have curriculum that needs to be approved. It's all very formal. But of course we have a lot more choice in what curriculum, how it will be taught. Online, there's a lot of online now, of course, that has changed too. In the beginning we had many more books. And the library, the local library, has helped so much in adding to the knowledge and enriching this education. So I'm still very pleased with the homeschool experience, and I'm pretty certain my kids will say the same thing, that they had a good experience and that they learned, I think, a little bit more, or maybe different, or maybe things that are more important to learn about. And I would say I am quite engaged with the community. I'm a board member in one of the nonprofits here, and I like to be involved as much as my time allows. But I do prioritize my kids first, and that's needed because I made that commitment to homeschooling them. And while they are now at an age where they're pretty much managing their own schedule, I'm still kind of an overseer, obviously asking, do you need help? What needs to get done? Can I get you another curriculum? Where are you at? How are your grades? What are your scores? And obviously, we also want to talk about things aside from the curriculum. We want to talk about daily life happenings in the world, what's going on. I want them to have a world view and not just an American viewpoint. So definitely my German perspective has probably helped my kids view things in a different light or see things from a different angle. And that can't be a bad thing. Well, it was nice to talk to you today. This was kind of an indoor thing because, the weather, it doesn't look very good today. So I didn't feel like going outside. And aside from that, I have Hexenschuss. Those German listeners will know what that means. I threw my back out. And I'm not even sure how. Maybe when I was pulling the sled with the wood. Anyway, it's getting better. But that's why this video isn't quite as active, and next one will hopefully be back to some fun winter stuff to do. See you in the next video, part 3. Bye.